The UFC of 1993 and the UFC of today are totally unrecognizable from one another. From public perception to the on-screen product itself, the iterations of old-school Ultimate Fighting and modern-day mixed martial arts (MMA) look and feel like completely different forms of entertainment. For that reason, it took some time before the general public warmed up to the idea of MMA as a legitimate sporting competition. The concept of two people using almost everything at their disposal to incapacitate their opponent just seemed too barbaric at the time. So how exactly did the UFC turn from the underground blood sport dubbed as human cockfighting into the billion-dollar empire that it is today? To answer that, we must look at the roots of MMA and the dark secrets that the sport keeps. Unbeknownst to many, the inception of the UFC didn't give way to the birth of MMA per se. That distinction belongs to an event called the Toughest Guy Contest of 1979. The Toughest Guy Contest was the first regulated MMA competition in Northern America, billed as organized legalized street fighting. Unfortunately, the Toughest Guy Contest caught the attention of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission and was banned for being too violent. Here's where things get a little tricky. In the same year, an unrelated event called the Tough Man Contest saw the tragic death of 23-year-old amateur Ronald Miller, who succumbed to injuries he sustained during the event. The scandal sparked legislative efforts to ban Tough Man, and understandably so. However, it followed by a head-scratching move by the Pennsylvania State Athletic Commission to advise the Senate to outlaw Tough Guy as well, even if it had nothing to do with the tragedy. Just like that, the Northern America MMA scene would completely shut down for the next few years. Then came Art Davie in 1993, who came up with the concept of a no-holds-barred fighting contest called War of the World, where martial artists from different disciplines collide to determine which style would reign supreme. Davie pitched the idea to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Grandmaster Rorion Gracie and his student John Milius. Together, the trio established WOW Promotions. And in November of the same year, the company staged its first ever event called Ultimate Fighting Championship. The event was a major hit, with Rorion's younger brother, Royce Gracie, emerging as the inaugural winner. The success of the initial event led to subsequent tournaments as interest and fanfare around the sport continued to grow. UFC 5 in 1995 was a landmark event for the sport, as it was when time limits and non-tournament bouts were introduced. Just like that, the promotion continued to gain momentum, and it appeared that there was no way to go but up. However, WOW Promotions would suffer its first setback in 1996 after the United States government passed a law that prohibited UFC events from taking place. On top of that, it was around this time when Arizona Senator John McCain spearheaded a campaign to outlaw the UFC nationwide, and infamously dubbed the term human cockfighting. In response to the public outcry, UFC 9 saw major changes, including the ban on headbutts and closed-fist strikes to the head. These adjustments resulted in an abomination of a matchup between MMA legend Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock in the show's main event. However, the headaches didn't stop there. As McCain gained more support from several states, the UFC was unable to host events in major combat sports hotspots including Nevada, California, and New York. So, how did the company respond? By implementing more modifications in its rule set, with the goal of becoming more palatable to the masses. UFC 12 saw the establishment of weight divisions. UFC 14 was when 4-ounce gloves were made mandatory, while UFC 15 implemented the ban on groin strikes, hair pulling, as well as knees and stomps to the head of a downed fighter. Towards the end of the millennium, the promotion, which by then goes by the name UFC, enforced rounds and adapted the 10-point must system from boxing, where the winner is awarded 10 points, while the loser is given 9 or less. These changes led to the MMA structure that we know today, and the rest, as they say, is history. Fast forward to 2008, the UFC was thriving and as popular as ever, thanks in large part to Dana White and the Fertitta brothers, Frank and Lorenzo. By then, the average pay-per-view buys per event soared to 527,000, an enormous leap from its 70,000 average buys in 2001. However, MMA still wasn't generally accepted as a legitimate sport even then. Georges St. Pierre revealed that a huge part of his motivation to perform in front of his hometown crowd at UFC 83 was that he was depicted as a barbarian by the Canadian press. In 2016, New York became the 50th U.S. state to legalize and regulate MMA, after treating the UFC as persona non grata since 1997. The special occasion was marked by a historic moment, as it was when Conor McGregor became the first ever fighter to hold titles in 2 division weight classes simultaneously. Needless to say, the UFC that we know and love has come a long way from its archaic beginnings. As fans of modern MMA, it's easy to overlook how fortunate we are to have access to the sport we love and a variety of events to look forward to on a weekly basis. That's not to say, however, that MMA has realized its full potential as a sport and a community. But if you ever find yourself getting too caught up with the negativity that tends to come with it, just remember that there could have been a world in which MMA ceased to exist before it had a chance to flourish. And that's it for today's video.